Allô, Nissan? Hey, grosse tempête, hein?
Hey, Karine, oui, je sais, les vilains bonhommes de neige sont de retour.
Mais avec le Nissan Rogue à traction intégrale, c'est pas stressant.
Exact, il est conçu et testé pour nos hivers. Oh, Karine, il y a un bonhomme dans le Rogue.
Ah, c'est correct. J'ai allumé les sièges chauffants.
Ah, bien joué, Karine. Maîtrisez toutes les conditions. Louez le Rogue S 2026 à partir de 0,4% jusqu'à 36 mois, incluant une réduction fidélité de 0,5% pour les clients Nissan admissibles. Jusqu'au 2 mars, sur approbation de crédit, les conditions s'appliquent. Détails chez Nissan.
All right, Anglo school boards got a little bit of a court victory this week. They've gotten at least a temporary reprieve. And with more on this, let's go to Russell Copeman, Executive Director of the Quebec English School Boards Association. Russell, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. How you doing?
Great, Elias. Thank you.
All right.
Better since Monday.
Okay, so you know what? I almost wanted to ask you, are you breathing easier? Was my first question. So answer that one. Why are you breathing easier?
Well, we received a very positive judgment. We, if you'll permit, sort of said we won the first round of this legal battle to try and maintain the control and management of our school boards for within the English-speaking community on Monday when Mr. Justice Lucier issued a stay, or more commonly known as an injunction, preventing the implementation of Bill 40 until the whole constitutional question is settled by the same court, the Quebec Superior Court, later this fall. So, it was an important first step, and a positive one. It means that Bill 40 does not apply to English language school boards until the court has heard these constitutional questions, the substance of the arguments later this fall.
Now, Russell, I may be oversimplifying this. Please tell me if I am. But it seems like the CAQ government's position has always been, you guys are getting your elections. What's your problem? Just go along with it. Is that too much of an oversimplification here?
The government has maintained that they think Bill 40 respects the constitutional right of the community to control and manage our school system. We maintain that it doesn't.
Mm-hmm. Does this ruling, give you hope that the courts will go along with your assessment?
It's only a preliminary stage,
mm-hmm.
Elias, and without getting into too much detail, there are sort of three criteria by which an injunction is analyzed. One are the constitutional issues. In this case, are they serious? And the judge said yes. These are serious issues, that need to be determined by a court. Secondly, will the applicants, in this case the English School Board, suffer irreparable harm if the bill is put into effect? And there he answered yes, that we would suffer irreparable harm. It's a little bit like trying to get toothpaste back in the tube after you squeezed it out.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty hard to do that, after a new structure has been put into place. And the third one is what is known as the sort of balance of inconveniences. Who is inconvenienced more by an injunction, the legislature or the applicants? And in this case, Mr. Justice Lucier found that we were inconvenienced more. So, it's a first step, but I remind you and your listeners that school boards are the last public institutions truly controlled and managed by our community. And this is why we feel it's so important to undertake this legal action. And, simply having elections, you have to look at the kind of elections, you have to look at the powers of these new school service centers. We believe there's a trend in the bill to transfer powers to Quebec City. I think we've seen that during the pandemic. That the boards of directors of these new school service centers will have less power and less roles and responsibilities. The elections themselves are we don't believe respect our right to control and manage our constitutional rights. Parents have to get elected to these new school service center boards of directors. Parents have to first be members of their school's governing boards. Mm-hmm. That eliminates 99% of parents from running for the boards of these new school service centers. Community representatives have to run territory-wide. That means, for example, in central Quebec, the territory for central Quebec is just slightly smaller than Spain. It covers about a dozen provincial ridings. Yeah. And you're asking volunteers to run, in a territory roughly the equivalent of 12 provincial ridings. It makes no sense. the exercise of democracy and control and management is not just limited to who gets to vote, but it's how candidates get to become candidates, and is that open and democratic and free of undue influence? And we don't believe that that's the case.
We're with Russell Copeman, Executive Director of the Quebec English School Boards Association, talking about a recent ruling in Quebec court that gives English school boards at least a bit of a reprieve here. What does this mean, though, Russell, for elections that I believe were upcoming? Are we going to go to the polls just like we've done in the past? What does that leave the state of the upcoming elections at?
Right. Well, that's an excellent question. In theory, it means that elections would be held on November 1st based on the current model, which is to say school board commissioners elected in their wards, and anybody virtually gets to be a candidate, and the chairman is elected board-wide. But, Elias, the position of QESBA has been for many months now that those elections should be postponed.
Okay.
We thought under the new model that no one was ready. The ministry wasn't ready for them. School board administrators are much more concerned about the safe return to school, as are parents, as are teachers, as are our staff, and as is the public, than running in a school election on the 1st of November. So we've been imploring the government of Quebec, with other groups, by the way, we're not the only one, including the Parents Committee Association, to postpone those elections until 2021. And I think this judgment just gives us greater reason to ask the government of Quebec to postpone these elections, as the National Assembly has done previously, so that we can take the time to sort out this legal muddle and have people truly focus on a campaign. I think if you walked down any street in NDG, Westmount, Beaconsfield, in the townships, and asked an individual, are you excited about, interested in school elections on the 1st of November, they would look at you as though you were from Mars.
Yes, but they would do that in any year, right?
Well, we have a better participation rate than the French school boards did, about 1 in 5. Mm-hmm. It's not sufficient, yes, and there's, we've proposed ways to try and improve that. But in the current circumstances, when you're still in the middle of a pandemic, and now you have this legal limbo, we just feel that these elections should be postponed for, into 2021.
Are you worried the government is going to purposely not listen to that reasoning? Because it just for all types of reasons, because of COVID-19, because there's so many reasons why you should just postpone this election, especially if there's a court case that's pending. But do you feel that the government may just say, you know what, let's do these elections because it would create all of this tumult and create a situation where maybe only 8% of people show up to vote?
There is an increasing feeling, Elias, within our leadership, and I would say within groups in the English-speaking community, that these elections were designed to fail, that the government is really not doesn't particularly care if they fail, and in fact, it may play into their hands if it fails. And, that's cynical. I hope that isn't the case, mm-hmm. But things seem to indicate that that's a definite possibility, and which is why we think these elections should be postponed. The National Assembly can adopt legislation, as they did in June of 2018, extending the mandate of current commissioners until we sort all this out. And we believe that's the most responsible attitude to take in our current situation. We've seen, all the angst around parents going back to school, sending their children back to school. Our staff, our teachers, our administrators are preoccupied with this 100%. It just doesn't make any sense to hold these elections. And if you go on Elections Quebec's website as of yesterday and you look up school elections, the same phrase is there as it was been there since the 8th of February. Because of Bill 40, this section will be updated in the coming weeks. Uh-huh. Elections Quebec has on their website virtually no up-to-date information on school elections as of yesterday. It's nonsense.
Russell, just we're out of time here, but one quick question. Is it safe to say for all parents of kids that send their kids to an English school in Quebec that for this school year, governance, nothing's going to change because of this court ruling? They can sort of say, okay, things are going to go at least for this school year?
It depends on whether the government chooses to appeal this decision of the Superior Court, which we hope they will not choose to appeal it. All of this costs money. A lot of it is taxpayers' money. We think we can resolve the issue of elections by working with the government and postponing them till next year and just give everybody a breather. There's no immediate necessity to have this new governance model apply in our network. So let's everybody take a deep breath, allow the courts to rule on the substance of the question, and let's just keep going on with the real preoccupations, which is student success and safety.
Well, I'd love to think that would happen, Russell, but I think they've got a hankering to put Quebec flag logos all over the schools.
Yeah, and that won't happen with this judgment.
Okay, well, Russell, we'll catch up real soon if there's any developments. Thanks for coming on the show.
Always a pleasure.
That's Russell Copeman, Executive Director of the Quebec English School Boards Association.